Hey haters! Welcome back to the worst channel on YouTube, and yes, I guess that's the name of my fan base. Don't forget to leave a nasty hate comment below on how terrible this all is, and subscribe to become one of the haters. And again, I'm Matt Novum, I run this channel, and I hope this is terrible for you. Okay, so I made a reaction video to small YouTube channels a little while back, and there's something else I wanted to talk about. Buddhist Twitter accounts, and Buddhist social media in general. As a Buddhist myself, I've subscribed to Buddhist Twitter accounts many times before, and I always get disappointed. Shameless plug, remember you can always follow me on Twitter at Matt Novum. The reason I become disappointed is because most of these accounts just tweet out stale platitudes and trite nonsense, and it really makes me angry that these accounts masquerade as Buddhist, and there are literally hundreds of them. And yes, I know there are plenty of accounts out there on Twitter, Instagram, and every social media platform that just send out vapid nonsense, and most of it is stolen content anyway. The thing is that when these are freebooted garbage life hacks or bad Instagram comedy, it's annoying, but when it comes to spirituality, it can be very misleading and problematic for people really looking for life advice. Like, imagine going to a therapist that just repeats out of context quotes from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then just smiles at you like this was something profound. You'd be pretty frustrated. So I want to look at some of these, but one account on Twitter that I want to point out and give a shout out to that actually has reliable and helpful good Buddhist content on Twitter is Buddhist Geeks. I follow them, and if you're truly interested in Buddhism, I would recommend you do the same. I promise I'm not sponsored by them or anything. They don't even know I'm doing this plug to my one fan, but yeah, beyond that, there are plenty of terrible Buddhist accounts, especially on Twitter. So let's look at some of these. And then the first one I want to talk about is Tiny Buddha. The first thing you'll notice about these accounts is that they send out tweets like 17 times a day, because as we all know, quantity is the same thing as quality, right? So really, I could make a reaction video to an entire day of their tweets, but I just wanted to pick out a few that I think are really emblematic of how they behave and the kind of things that they send out. So here's one in particular that they sent out a couple weeks back. Here's what they said. Money, possessions, status. Many of us spend our lives pursuing these things, sometimes at great personal cost. But these aren't the things that truly matter. Purpose, time, health, and relationships. Those are our most precious assets. Okay, so on the surface, this sounds like a Buddhist quote. When you don't really think about it, sure, it sounds like great advice. It sounds like a standard hippie response against the woes of materialism. And sure, there's a grain of truth to it, but in reality, it's not Buddhist at all, and it's just really frustrating. First off, this is a very selfish thing to say. Most people in the world struggle to survive, and quote-unquote spending your life trying to pursue money and possessions is not due to greed or because we aren't enlightened, but because we have to put food on the table and survive day to day. Yes, I pursue material things, but that's because I need food. I need a roof over my head. I need to support myself. Most people, myself included, don't have the luxury of sitting around and navel-gazing all day. So saying that spending your time pursuing these things gets in the way of happiness is a very shallow and stupid way of seeing things. After all, there is a part of the Buddhist Eightfold Path, which is something that all Buddhists hold as sacred, which is right livelihood. It's all about having a job that doesn't violate our ethical principles. It's about working. It's not about sitting around and not doing anything. To put this another way, imagine going up to a poor single mother who is trying to scrape by and telling her, "Oh, you should stop trying to work to feed your family and really stop and focus on your relationships with your children, because that's where true happiness lies." Or try to quit your job and tell your landlord that finding your purpose is what will make you happy, and he should understand that. It's foolish and something the Buddha would never tell people. The Buddha might give this advice to a monk who is living off the charity of the community, but to the average person, this advice is meaningless. All it does is serve to slightly guilt us into thinking, oh, well, I'm not being as spiritual as I should be. I should give up on these material goods. But really, we need material goods to survive. It's greed that's a problem. It's not actually seeking material goods because we do need them. It is part of life. It's part of what we need to do. Buddhism, again, is primarily about balance. It's not about completely renouncing everything material just for relationships. It's not about that, and it's never been about that. Alright, maybe I'm being too harsh on this one account. It is true that I follow them still on Twitter, because now and then they do say something good. But let's take a look at a different account. One that's truly bottom of the barrel, just total and complete trash. It's called Mindful Everyday. Let go of the need to control the outcome. Trust the process. Trust your intuition. Trust yourself. This is such a meaningless statement. It's absolutely ridiculous. Mindfulness is literally the exact opposite of this statement. To be mindful is to go against our intuition. Our intuition tells us to grasp, to cling to our attachments, to cling to the past, to worry about the future, to not be mindful. Following our intuition and thoughtlessly wandering around is what leads to our suffering, and meditation is about controlling our minds and controlling the quote-unquote outcome. So really, this tweet is 100% against the idea of mindfulness. It's the exact opposite. But maybe I'm being too harsh once again, so let's take a look at another piece of wisdom from this account. We don't always have to like what is happening. Mindfulness helps us work with whatever is here, now. Alright, so this statement really doesn't make any sense. No, we don't have to like what's happening, but mindfulness will just help us to focus on what's going on, which would just mean we would be focusing on what we don't like. This is the equivalent of saying, hey, guess what? You have cancer. Well, why don't you think about it for a while? If you have a choice between being kind and being right, choose being kind and you'll be right every time. Okay, this one really made me angry when I saw it and was actually the catalyst that sparked this entire video. Buddhism isn't always about being kind. Buddhism is about seeking the truth. For example, when Hindu ascetics came to the Buddha and told him he was completely wrong and that they knew better, he didn't just smile and turn the other cheek. No, the Buddha argued with them. They told him that they knew they had an unchanging soul within themselves, and the Buddha chuckled at them and asked them to point out where this soul was. When they were unable to do so after trying over and over, he just said, "See, I was right," and he just kind of left him in the dust. This isn't kind, but the truth is not always kind. If we were kind all the time, this would involve lying. Sometimes the truth is harsh, and Buddhism is about balance and the truth, not necessarily about kindness. I could go on, but you get the point. See, these Twitter accounts are a lot like those old quote-a-day emails that you could sign up for that would send you some generic inspirational quote every day. And this is what really frustrates me. There are thousands of people who follow these accounts and mindlessly like them and retweet them, and I really mean what I said. They mindlessly follow them. It's really the opposite of mindfulness, and therefore most of these accounts are completely the opposite of Buddhism, and I'm pretty sure that they know it. On more than one occasion, I've replied to some of these vapid statements and challenged them, and I never get replies, of course, from these accounts because they're not interested in actual debate or in spreading the truth of anything. They're just interested in the retweets and the likes. And that's what really gets to me about them. Buddhism is about thinking, about seeing the world as it really is, not as you want it to be, and first and foremost, about the truth of life. Sometimes truth is harsh. It isn't about fluffy nonsense. If you really want to practice Buddhism, you need to live your life and try to live in a balanced way. This means balancing relaxation time and work. This means finding time to earn money and hold down a job, as well as finding time to spend with your family. This means not spending every waking moment in meditation because that's an extreme as well, and not just mindlessly accepting whatever you're told. Okay, calming down. So I've ranted long enough, I think. I edited a lot of this out too because when I was recording this audio file, man, I just went off on some of these, but you get the point. I just get frustrated that these accounts misrepresent what Buddhism is about. And I get it, of course. The things they tweet out are feel-good, simplistic statements that you can read on your lunch break or whatever and think that you're actually gaining insight and wisdom. But I caution you, stop and actually think about what's being said, because a lot of the time, it doesn't make sense. And yes, it's possible that it doesn't make sense because you're not spiritually advanced enough to understand it, but I will tell you, most of the time, that's not the case. So, for example, in Buddhism, there is the truth that life contains suffering. That's the first noble truth. It's not pleasant, but it's true. You can see it for yourself. You don't need some spiritual master to explain it to you. You know that life contains suffering. And so you can see it for yourself. If one of these tweets, though, tells you some truth that really doesn't make any sense or just doesn't sit right with you, stop and think about it for a while. See if it actually does make sense. See if it's actually practical, because that's more Buddhist than just accepting whatever they're saying. So it's not a matter of, oh, well, I just need to accept whatever's being said to me. No, stop and think, because that's what Buddhism is about. First and foremost, it's about finding the truth of life and about using your brain. So, with that said, if I could leave you with one quote that actually came from the Buddha, it's this. If someone recites sacred words and wisdom, but doesn't put them into practice, they are like a farmer who counts his neighbor's cows. He doesn't partake in the blessings of enlightenment. But one who doesn't know many sacred words and doesn't recite the sacred texts, but works diligently to put what wisdom he does know into practice, forsaking lust, hatred, and delusion, he will find blessings and happiness. Thank you so much for watching, and I know this was a little bit longer than usual, but I hope you enjoyed. Please leave me your thoughts in the comments below, because really, I am looking to start a conversation. I always like to hear from people, and, consider subscribing if you liked. But, yeah. Anyway, I'm Matt Novum. This is the worst channel on YouTube, and I hope you have a great day.